In the previous session, we identified various rules of definition. The third rule requires that an object is defined by another by establishing its relationship to the other. In correlating the one to the other, an object is therefore defined by that which is, firstly, like it, since they are related, but secondly, not it, since it is another. There is therefore both a continuity and discontinuity between the definer A and the defined C. This means that in the simplest case, A and C have two attributes each, one in continuity and one in discontinuity. We have considered above that for definition to be, there must be a definer who is infinite. Therefore, in the simplest case, the definer has two attributes, namely being and infinity. The defined C is therefore either, firstly, finite being, so that it has being in continuity with A, but is finite in discontinuity with it. Secondly, the defined C is infinite non-being, so that it is unbounded in continuity with A, but has no being in discontinuity with it. Finite being is what the Bible calls creation, that is, that which has defined or derived being, and that by and from God. As such, it is substantially what the Bible calls earth and what we call matter, which we shall designate M. As it is written in Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 and 2, "In the beginning God made the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters." Notice that after introducing creation as the heavens and the earth, only a description of the earth is supplied. Only in day 2 is a description of the heavens, that is, space, given. We will consider the significance of this shortly. We have demonstrated that God, the ultimate definer, is self-defining, yet still, in being defined by another, God is defined in relation to creation as the creator. Consider then that a finite object X may occupy a particular region on the ontological landscape, so that it is inexistent in regions beyond it. For example, we may say that man is typically inexistent on the moon. Infinite being, on the other hand, occupies all ontological domains. We may therefore conceive of infinite non-being as the inoccupancy of all ontological domains, that is, absolute inexistence. As such, we cannot discuss absolute non-being in any way since it has no attributes. But then logic requires that it is, which is why we are discussing it. As such, it is what the Bible calls the mystery of lawlessness and what we call contradiction, for it is that which is not. As it is written in Revelation chapter 17 verse 8, "The beast that you saw was, and is not, and is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. And the dwellers on earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will marvel to see the beast, because it was, and is not, and is to come. For in being in the abyss, the beast ceases to be," which is the same as to say that the beast enters the realm of non-being. The abyss is that which is not. With the defined being both finite being and absolute non-being, we reason that absolute non-being can be rendered as a kind of finite being. We can allow this in two ways. First, we reason that a finite quantity can be defined as one that is a finite step from any other finite quantity. For example, a quantity that is one step down from one, which yields nothing, where nothing, zero in this case, means inexistence. In this way, absolute non-being is a finite quantity. We can demonstrate this another way by considering that finite being is as removed from infinity as non-being. Infinity minus n is the same as infinity minus 0, where n is any non-zero finite quantity and 0 is non-being. Therefore, in light of infinity, which is the definer, non-being is as finite as any finite quantity. But then non-being is not. We can therefore express non-being as any finite quantity and inexistence in singularity, so that non-being can be resolved as inexistent finite being, which solution can also be rendered as anti-finite being, as we shall now demonstrate. From the formula that non-being is that which is not, we reason that non-being is not non-being, since is not the same as is not. Therefore, if non-being is, then it is not. But since non-being is not, then non-being is not non-being.
And if non-being is not, then it is not is. But since non-being is, therefore non-being is not what non-being is. That is obviously a contradiction, but then that is what it is. Now, as that which is, we have demonstrated that non-being can be rendered as any finite quantity. We can then resolve the contradiction by granting that given n is not equal to n, where n is any finite quantity, then minus n. That is, minus n is as much as n if reckoned as n in a different direction. For example, given two objects moving at the same velocity from an origin but in opposite directions, the one object may be reckoned to have velocity n and the other one velocity minus n. Quantitatively though, they have exactly the same velocity. However, minus n is not equal to n if reckoned as a quantity in the same direction as n, because in this case minus n is 0, since the least quantity in the direction of n is 0. Therefore, any quantity below 0 is as much 0 as 0. In this way, minus n is both n, and then minus n is not n in being 0, where 0 can represent non-being. Recall now that this is the solution we obtained in the last section in considering that non-being can be rendered as inexistent finite being. With n being finite being, non-being can therefore be rendered as finite anti-being.
Where finite being is creation, finite anti-being is what the Bible calls destruction, which we shall designate minus c. Notice then that destruction is rendered as inexistence and creation in singularity. As such, it can also manifest severally as inexistence or as a kind of creation associated with inexistence, which we shall call destructive creation, designated C subscript minus C. Destruction therefore presents in one term inexistence and destructive creation severally or jointly as anti-creation. It is only as destruction that contradiction is and therefore manifests. That is, non-being can only be rendered to be in the form of destruction.
As it is written in Revelation 9:11, they have as king over them the angel of the bottomless pit. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek he is called Apollyon, where Abaddon means destruction and Apollyon means destroyer. Notice then that the abyss, the realm of non-being, is also rendered as the realm of destruction and the kingdom of the destroyer.
Then again, consider that in the negative sense, absolute non-being is infinite. Antimatter will therefore also manifest as a kind of anti-God, as an anti-infinity, which means that anti-infinity is a finite category. We will unfold the nature of non-being more in subsequent discussions. We have considered that since the defined manifests both as finite being and absolute non-being can be rendered as a kind of finite being, which condition we have solved as destruction. In the same way, we reason that finite being can also be rendered as a kind of non-being. We have considered that finite being is as removed from infinity as non-being. From infinity minus n equals infinity minus 0, where n is a non-zero finite quantity, we can reason that n equals 0. We expect then to find a manifestation of finite being that is nothing. This, we shall demonstrate, is the identity of space, which we shall designate S. As such, creation is constituted by space and matter, as it is written, "In the beginning God made the heavens and the earth," where the heavens is the biblical term for space and the earth is the biblical term for matter. To distinguish between nothing as space and nothing as non-being, we will designate non-being as a bracketed dash. Being as much space as matter, creation will manifest severally as space or as matter, or as space and matter in singularity. The latter is the definition of light, as we shall demonstrate more fully. Being in existence and creation in singularity, destruction will in turn be defined as inexistence on the one hand, and space, matter, and light on the other in singularity. As such, destructive creation is rendered severally as destructive space, matter, and light, and anti-creation is rendered severally as anti-space, antimatter, and anti-light.
Notice then that destructive creation, as a manifestation of non-being, can also be logically rendered as created destruction manifest in the realm of finite being, that is, creation. The universe in Toto may therefore be rendered on the one hand as finite being, which is creation and created destruction, and on the other as finite non-being, which is anti-creation and destructive creation. Notice then that we no longer make any reference to absolute non-being, because we can't. We will demonstrate in later sessions how these finite categories account for all phenomena in physics, and how these phenomena are identified as general categories in biblical theology.